Okay, hello and welcome to another edition of the Baseball Blue Book College Recruiting Q&A. I'm joined here tonight by my sidekick, Eric Wubba, and we're also going to have a different flavor tonight because Eric and I felt the need to have some parents join us because I think it offers great perspective for other parents to hear from parents that have gone through the process or are going through the process. So tonight we have Martin White from Texas who's joining us. Martin, thank you for joining us tonight.
You bet.
And so, Eric, how are you, sir, with your Mets cap on?
I'm doing good. You know, I wanted to celebrate the Mets blowing so much money that I can't even fathom it. But you know what? It's fun to watch.
$360 million it pays to be a quality baseball player in today's major league landscape.
Absolutely. That's the golden ring that we all go for, isn't it?
Well, I can tell you that, first of all, I want to bring everybody's attention. I have my new Blue Book gear. Thank you to Eric and David. How are we here? Why are we here? Every Tuesday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We stream these things out. We also record so that we can put out some segments on the YouTube video as well as the social media platforms in hopes of parents and student athletes finding their way and kind of helping them navigate the landscape of not only youth baseball, high school baseball, but a little bit of the college recruiting dynamic. And that's why Martin is joining us here tonight. And if you have a question, you can fire away. That's the whole beauty of the live stream. So if Martin says something that strikes a chord with you as a parent, go ahead and ask, and we'll make sure that we get those questions answered. Just for a point of edification, want to let everybody know there's some great changes that are going to be coming to the Baseball Blue Book app.
Yep.
If you haven't downloaded it yet, I strongly encourage you to do so because, first of all, Baseball Blue Book, you've heard us say it over and over. I used it when I was a kid in the dinosaur age when it was a book, a manual. Today it's an app. It's a directory. It's been around for 130 some odd years. That's pretty significant. And the most important thing to understand is it's all baseball all the time. And so as you can see on our Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're joined by some pretty great guests. This upcoming Thursday, we have Brian O'Connor joining us from the University of Virginia, head coach. We have Mike Bianco from Ole Miss. We have Cliff Godwin from East Carolina. So my point of telling you this is going to find a lot of great contact, but most importantly, a lot of great access to information as well as to the colleges directly on the app. It's free. It's free. It's free. It's free. Nobody's buying anything. Nobody's selling anything. It's a free app. And that's what we are doing. These are free kind of Q&As that we do on a weekly basis, both on Tuesdays and then with the coaches on Thursdays.
Walter's absolutely right. The thing about it is access, right? And just to chime in, I actually was motivated by Walter's great YouTube presence. I actually started uploading all of my podcasts of some coaches that I'm doing, and it's a little bit different flavor. It's a little bit different spin than what Walter does. Mine is just really getting to know the coaches and getting to know the programs. And I do a lot of NAIA, JUCO, Division III coaches. Just dropped one today. Coach Nathan Bacon out of Dort University in Iowa. It's a little NAIA school, really good program. And so go ahead and check that YouTube video out. But I've got a whole bunch of other ones. So we're really trying to just provide you guys with access, information to make your lives a little bit better, so you can focus on what you need to do to make your kids better at at the game of baseball.
So Martin, I want to introduce you. Tell us about your background, player, coach, et cetera, and share your story because it's very unique as it pertains to your sons.
Okay. My background, I grew up in a small town in southeastern New Mexico, and played in college football at the University of New Mexico back in the mid to late 80s. And I was fortunate to have some twins born almost 19 years ago now. And I guess to kind of jump into what you guys are probably interested in tonight, I started coaching their little team from 10U through 14U in travel ball. And we wound up to, I see your Mets hat there. And we had one of our kids that played with me for over a year. We've been lifelong friends with their family. Jet Williams played for me for a couple of years. And he was the first round pick of the Mets last year, one of their picks. Yep. I think he signed for just right around $4 million. And then the year before that, I had another one of my players, Creed Willems out of Aledo, Texas, in the 8th round, signed for about $1.1 million. So I think grand total in 5 years there, we had 26 kids now that are moving on to the next levels, and 2 of them are millionaires now playing professional baseball. In fact, Quinn Ewers, who's a quarterback at Texas, played for us for a while as well. So we were very blessed with some talent and things like that. So it got us in here, even though I played myself. And one of my coaches, Sean Lowe, was a first rounder in '92 by the Cardinals and played 8 years in the big leagues. We thought we knew quite a bit about this, but it turned out we really didn't when it came to kind of advising our players and even our own children did this. There was a lot of learning, let's just say.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you are able to share. I mean, one of the greatest things that I try to pass forward or move forward from a parental standpoint, we know what it looks like when the boys are really little. You know, when they grab their glove for the first time and they can't wait to go to a game, when they're disappointed, when there's a rain out. And then, as you just alluded to, now you have 2 19-year-old young men that are about to find their way, you know, within the college, baseball landscape. So I'd like you to kind of share with parents, at what ages were your boys first initially contacted as far as recruiting? Their processes were concerned with regard to college baseball.
You know, it's something we never even dreamed when we started that thing out. And even when it started happening, your answer was the 8th grade. Between the 8th and 9th grade, my one son, Jared, who he had hit puberty. He was around over 6 foot tall, was throwing 85 plus miles an hour at the time, and with good command of 3 or 4 pitches. And he started that summer. The calls, seeing scouts, college coaches in the stands. Like, we were down in Atlanta, we were down in Florida at the Boombah complex down there, and every game we'd be at, there'd be 20, 30, if not more, big time college coaches. And he probably got over 20 offers that summer to play college baseball. And that was for him. I had another kid the year prior to that, Griffin Herring, who's a freshman at LSU, was the Texas 6A Player of the Year this past year. We actually won the state championship here. My boys did, along with Griffin Herring. Griffin had several offers the year prior. Now, he's a grade ahead of my boys, but he had schools like Virginia, Miami, Vanderbilt, and LSU, who he ultimately committed to Vanderbilt that year. But it started really early, way earlier than we were prepared for, let's just say.
And that was at the 8th grade level.
Yes, that was a summer between their 8th and 9th grade year for all 3 of them and several other of my players.
Hey, Martin, could you expand on that? You just said way earlier than what we were prepared for. So what does that mean when you look back and you look at it and go, we really weren't prepared, and here are some things that we wish we would have known?
Well, initially, some of the schools were even telling us, we had gone to some camps that winter, and we can't offer you until your junior year. That was being said, and which again, there was ways around it. They would contact our coach, then our coach would tell us, "Hey, call school X at 8:00 tonight." We could, we didn't have anybody really technically break any rules, in my opinion, or fact that I know. There's gray areas that they worked in, and it was very flattering. Getting back to why we weren't ready for it. Gosh, 1 minute you're coaching a group of 12-year-olds that none of them, they all have squeaky voices, and the next minute, 2 years later, they're 14, 15 years old, and they have beards, and they're taller than you are.
Yeah.
They're throwing baseballs 85, 90 miles an hour because against some of the training and there's no doubt compared to when I was growing up, uh, the one-on-one, the specialty training has been a big game changer. That and video help and things like that. And 1 minute they're 12 years old, playing on little league fields. The next minute they're playing on high school fields, hitting home runs and throwing 85, 88 miles an hour, and they're drawing offers.
So the interesting dynamic that I really wanted to have Martin share with us tonight are one of many. Both your sons are also football players, correct?
Yes, sir. They're actually both going to college now on full football scholarship. Now, I have to tell you one little correction here. One of my sons is going to Texas A&M on a full football scholarship. He will play baseball as well. Coach Fisher's been good enough to allow him to try, because football is paying the bills. So technically he'll be a walk-on in baseball, even though he's received numerous offers to play baseball, but we couldn't accept those and play both sports the way the NCAA rules work.
Right.
My other son, Jared, he was the one that initially drew so many offers in baseball. He's actually he was an Arkansas commit for the last literally 4 years. He reopened his recruiting, had multiple D1 offers here. He did that about 3 months ago, and he's decided to go to JUCO route. He instead of accepting D1 money, he's going to go JUCO because he sat behind his brother on the football team. His brother's the #1 punter kicker in the nation right now, and so he was his backup this year, and he held for him. And went to the camps and things like that. That's where you kind of do just get discovered oftentimes in both the sports, by the way, from what we've experienced. And he had multiple opportunities at small schools and JUCOs to go, and he's decided to go the junior college route, and he's going to play for Tyler Junior College on a full football scholarship for Coach Tanner Jacobson.
Awesome.
Well, to me, that's just oozes versatility and athleticism. But I really, at a deeper level, it looks really great to me from this angle that you have both your boys kind of taking alternative routes.
Yeah.
But at some point they're going to end up kind of chasing that same, rabbit, with regard to the Division I athletics. At what point did you as a parent know, before the college coaches started coming around, you're a former Division I athlete at a really, prominent Division I football program. When did you as a dad say, I think my boys have something that, they'll be able to become, good student athletes at a fairly high level?
Boy, like I said, I really wasn't prepared for it. It hit us all of a sudden there in the 8th grade with Jared. And, the very next year, Tyler, he was actually about 6 months, even though they're identical twins, and he's actually the bigger one now. He was about 6 months to almost a year behind Jared as far as hitting puberty. So sometimes the late bloomers, it can be a little kinder. But I'll say this for the football piece. The next year, we've gone to some camps. In fact, by his sophomore year, we were at AT&T Stadium, and we were at a camp about this time of the year at Christmas time. A guy named Brandon Kornblue out of Florida, give him a little props here, holds a camp there every year, and it's nice because we're indoors that time of year, which we don't get very good weather here, so it's a good workout for it. Tyler was hitting balls off the scoreboard there at Jerry World. I think he hit 5 or 6 in a row, and Brandon had to actually move him to the edge of the field to continue the competition and the tryout. At that point, I kind of was like, I think this one here's definitely got a shot in football. That's part of my story here that I want like a lot of people like, because it ties into like when did I know? Well, when they're in the 8th grade, 85, 88 miles an hour as a pitcher and being 6 foot tall, it's impressive. But that's not what's going to get you signed 4 years later. It's not at the SEC level or the ACC level. So you're still using your imagination. So, I still don't know for sure when I see it, more times than not, when I see somebody who's fully prepared for the baseball level. Yeah. Baseball is just such a different sport than football.
Yep.
And with 11.75 scholarships and the different rules for football, because that's kind of one of the reasons I encourage my boys to kind of, since they were good at both, but they really love baseball. Let's pursue the football. You'll go in as a kind of a wink walk on, And for baseball, because right now it's really tough for these younger players, because every day those coaches are looking at the board, and with the transfer portal,
Yep.
the NIL money and all that, and I don't blame the coaches whatsoever. If I was, making $500,000 or more in salary and needing to win at Omaha to keep my money, I don't think I would probably play very many freshmen either. And that's why we're big JUCO fans around here as well, because I think, because I think in order to develop to your full potential, you have to do your off the field work as well as you have to play too. So, I mean, going and playing 10 innings at a Division I school as a freshman, you're not developing. I don't think. I think
Yep.
I think you need to have minimum 25 at bats per year, and I think you need to have minimum 20 innings pitched minimum to really get any kind of development, because you have to apply both the training and the competition. And it's a JUCO level for sure. If you're very good, you're going to get 20 innings in the fall. There's a lot more fall opportunity at JUCO.
Exactly.
And my son's probably going to get, let's go in JUCO. He'll get at least 20 innings, right about that, in the fall. The coach has always been good enough to map it out for him. And in the spring, he'll have to obviously earn this, but probably somewhere between 30 and 60 innings, which would be perfect, versus sitting and waving a towel at an SEC or an ACC or a Big 12 school, which almost all freshmen really do, and then falling behind the transfer portal guys and the JUCO guys.
You know what, Walter? It's funny. It's like Martin listened to my our conversation last week, because I was really talking about the JUCO side,
Right.
and it's tough because as a parent and as a player, D1's always the big one, right? D1's the cool name. It's the good. It's the logos. It's all the stuff that everybody wants to be part of the college. But, sir, you really kind of narrow it down, and what is the reason you're going? And you said development, which is perfect. Understanding where your kid is, what he needs, and what's most important as far as what he wants to do. And I think that's really important to see that, because he was good enough to make D1. He was good enough to probably make some teams on some Division I schools, but he picked the JUCO. Talk a little bit more about the decision to do that. I know it was football centric, but baseball kind of carried along. Was it truly a development decision for you guys?
Yes, 100%. Because we knew everything I'm saying is fact. All you need to do is go to these teams' websites and look at see how many freshmen throw 20. How many freshmen threw it? Like, if a school's recruiting you, my advice to somebody right now: how many freshmen? If you're a pitcher at that school, threw 20 innings or more last year. And
Right.
the good chances, if that somebody did, they're probably a lefty. Well, in my case, my son, he's a righty.
Yep.
And so the answer was none. At almost all the schools that had offered him back in the day, all the schools, the quote sexy schools he's looking at,
Yeah.
the answer is practically none. I mean, you have to literally be a guy who's drafted really high and then turns that down and goes to probably get any kind of I don't want to say assurance, but earn the trust of a coaching staff to even play significantly as a freshman at a Division I school that's competing for Omaha. And it's tough. I mean, what was toughest for my son, he plays at a high school that's won 3 out of the last 4 state championships here in Texas at the 6A level, which is the highest level. And they redid our facilities here going into his freshman year. So we have actually nicer facilities than a lot of the colleges have visited throughout the years. We really do at his high school.
That's crazy.
And mentally, for him to dial back, going to somewhere like in Arkansas, I could go on Ole Miss or some of the schools that offered him, Oklahoma, to go from that level to the JUCO level, just from the facilities wise. They're nice. I mean, they're way better than anything I ever played in back in the day, but compared to 15,000 people in the stands and a $50 million training facility that's brand new at the University of Arkansas, which has got, in my opinion, them, Ole Miss, LSU have probably got the best facilities of anywhere in the country. It's tough. That's tough on a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid going backwards like that.
Yeah.
But we had convinced him through facts that if you really truly want to play at Arkansas, this is your route to go, because if you go right now, you're not going to play. Almost certainly. Do some people maybe make it, but I'd say it'd be 1 in 10 at best. And in finding the right JUCO and the right fit, you're going to get your opportunities because there's a lot more opportunities to begin with in the fall because of the rules differences.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things that a lot of parents, I have two parents that are asking me similar questions. And this is something that I addressed in the book, The Shift. A lot of parents have no idea in the fall at both junior college, really all levels of college baseball, they carry significantly greater numbers on fall rosters than they do in the spring as it pertains to baseball. And so, you're hearing Martin talk a combination of football and baseball. Football, they're going to have 25, they have a total roster of 85. 25 can be new recruits. And so people see that and they think, well, that's football. It has nothing to do with baseball. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of universities, Arkansas, really every college and junior college, they're going to have anywhere from 50, in some cases as many as 70. Heck, I've seen 90 at Delgado, a junior college in New Orleans. The number one takeaway from what Martin is basically saying, it's a highly competitive, highly disciplined and competitive environment at the college level, regardless of division, regardless of the level. You have to be a talented student athlete to play JUCO, NAIA, Division III, Division II, Division I at the NCAA level. And the fall is one big, massive show me what you got. And, going the JUCO route, that's an informed parent. It may not be for everyone, but I want you to understand it takes a certain level of information gathering to be able to say, it's really great to go to Arkansas. And I'm only using that because Martin has used that as his son's prior commitment, Arkansas. And Martin's awareness of, hey, may not get a lot of opportunity to play / develop. Let's take a step back and kind of take a look at this from a different perspective. Now, Martin, did your son come up with this, or did you kind of present this scenario to him to say, hey, what about JUCO? Maybe we'll play more, pitch more, develop at a faster pace. Did that come from you or him?
It came from me. One of our coaches that coached me on that team that we had, the travel team, his name's Sean Lowe. Sean's from Mesquite, Texas. It's about 40 miles from here. We've been friends, lifelong friends. Sean went to, it was a first rounder, and he went the JUCO route. He went out of high school. He had offers from Texas, several schools, but he had on his own came up with this, and this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. He on his own went to McLennan Junior College and did really well there, and ended up going to Arizona State for 1 year and then get drafted. I believe it was 15th overall in the 1992 draft, and had an 8-year big league career. I think attended 12 spring trainings. Sean's always been really a big proponent of it. Another one of our summer coaches and a friend of ours, Linty Ingram, who coaches a 5-star team here in the DFW area. Linty played at McLennan as well, Arizona State, and then made it to AAA. I think it was a Pac-10 Pitcher of the Year, and pitched in the College World Series back in his career. Again, another guy. And again, the stuff that we're talking about here, guys, and you guys know this, it's just so hard. What the big game changer from even when Jared committed back 4 years ago to Arkansas is it's the transfer portal now, and the portal for sure has made it so much more difficult in the last 12 months than even it was when he committed. And again, just doing the research on the schools, we presented this to my son. It broke his heart. He had his heart set on somewhere like an Arkansas. He'd been committed for so long, or a big time school, and it took him a while to get around to it. But as we fed him the information and gave him the facts, he also knows other kids that are back home that are transferring after one semester. They're walking in there, like you said, to 75 kids in the locker room in the fall.
Yeah.
And kids walking in being told one thing. And again, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but 2 weeks before you get there, all of a sudden you've got guys coming in from all over the country that are throwing 95, 98, 99 miles an hour. And you're pretty happy with where you're at 92, 94, but you're not 90, and so we presented him the facts, and he eventually came to it on his own. And he did, actually, after he reopened up his committee, his recruiting again, he had multiple D1 offers, and he pitched for the Toronto Blue Jays scout team here locally in the fall. Had a real fall, went down to Jupiter and showed up pretty well there. It's a strategic thing. I mean, it's development because, it's really tough for an 18, 19-year-old kid to compete with 23, 24-year-old guys growing up.
It's really cool, Walter. It's almost inside information. That's what you should call this one, right? Because
exactly,
it really is, because people get caught on. You just said it. You said a couple things. The sexy names, the kids like it. I said it last week. You don't have posters of JUCO schools on your wall. You don't follow them in the sports page. You don't do it. But you said it perfect. It was a strategic move. And I think to the parents that are listening, and those you got to think of this from you're making a commitment that's going to set you up for success. And glitzy and glamorous and all those things are great. And if you make it, fantastic. But I think what you had said, let's go this route because we're going to come back to it. We're going to open the opportunity, and the transfer portal's changed everything. You're absolutely right. It has changed everything. You might have a commitment. You might be ready to play, but you got a 22-year-old kid, and the COVID didn't make it any better, right? You've got kids that have another couple years of eligibility. Now you got 23, 24-year-olds that might be on a college program. So I love it. I love what you're saying. And it's strategic. That's what I'm taking from this, a strategic move to do and set my kid up for success.
If you want to,
let's really, this is really interesting because for the first time, literally ever, we now have a transfer portal that is occurring after the completion of the fall semester.
Right.
Now, I'm knee deep in this. I'm talking working with parents and student athletes from the West Coast, from Texas, all over the East Coast. They're getting bounced out, or they're finding there's no room at the inn at the completion of the fall.
Yep.
Well, here's what's happening. Unlike the spring, where you can laterally transfer and be immediately eligible, in the fall, if you're transferring, you're going to hit the portal at the end of the fall semester. If you're trying to go laterally, you have to sit out for 1 year. For one playing season, excuse me. And then in the fall, you can become part of the active roster. This has never happened before. So it's really, Martin's story is really a powerful one, because unlike the vast majority of student athletes and parents that just full speed ahead, they put the blinders on and see Arkansas in the sight lines, and then they show up and get hit with the brick wall. Martin's kind of, as a dad and as a coach, hey, whoa, let's take a step back here and let's look at the facts of the world that we're living in today. You do not want to be a parent of a student athlete and get hit with an exit meeting where you're told there's no room at the inn, meaning you can stay here in school and be a student, but we don't have a roster spot, or if we want to redshirt you, you can't travel with the team. That's a gut-wrenching 9 weeks. That's a gut-wrenching 9 weeks. I had one really prominent coach I spoke to this morning, and he just said these fall transfers all think they're going to come in the spring and play. I have to be the first one to tell them that's not the case. Again, educate, informed decisions really alter your student athlete's future. And Martin, this is a tremendous story. Now, you said your son was a little disappointed. Does he see what you want him to see as far as the step back and the significance that this will play with regard to his development, both academically as well as athletically?
He does now, because I think, again, some of the best things that happened when we reopened his recruiting there 3 or 4 months ago. And he did, we were very fortunate to talk. There's some great junior colleges here in the city area. You've got, Tyler, obviously where we're at now, is won some national championships here in the last 5-10 years, and they've moved up to a scholarship school now. He talked to, and it was offered by Blinn. I know the head coach down at McLennan very well, and, in Navarro as well. And so he got to talk to these guys, and they were, grown men coaching. Of course, they're recruiting him, but they're telling him the same things. They're emphasizing the same thing. Is if you go D1 right now, you're a really good player. You're a special player. But you know what's going to happen if the coach has an opportunity? You've had a good fall. If you've pitched 5 or 10 innings in the fall, that's about the maximum you're going to do at the 4-year school level, and you've dominated. But they've got a chance to grab a 4th, 5th-year guy for the springtime. All of a sudden, at Christmas time, well, you can't blame them. I mean, those guys. I mean, listen, those guys are making a lot of money, and there's nowhere down for those coaches if they don't win. So what are they going to do? Are they going to throw my son, who's had 4 or 5 innings in the fall as a freshman? Or are they going to maybe even cut him and release him at semester there because they've got 2 guys coming in from Southern California or somewhere that are 95, 98 mile an hour blowers? I mean, I think we all know the answer to what we'd all do.
Yep.
Well, I think it's important to get parents. I'm getting a whole bunch of questions while I have my grandmother glasses on. So they're asking you, Martin, you're the star this evening. As a family, did you discuss this together before you brought it to your son's attention? Like who basically gave you a flag and said, whoa, Martin, you may want to really throttle back here? And because Arkansas, they're an Omaha staple. They're one of the top teams and arguably the best conference in college baseball. So who kind of just pulled you back a little bit and said, slow down there, big fellow. Let's start taking a look at this junior college route?
Well, again, I've pretty much known it all along. Again, I've known how hard it's going to be because I've known the facts. I've done the research about looking and seeing who actually plays as freshman and sophomore, who's actually on the field. And I think the biggest, the answer that people are probably looking for, the big game changer right now, unquestionably, is the transfer portal. That's the difference. That happened, obviously, if I'd have known back then what I know about the portal, I'd have tried to soften the blow a long time ago, even more, because it's going to be practically impossible for freshmen. If they're, I've said this, if you're on a team that's truly competing for Omaha, I just don't see how more than 1, maybe 2 freshmen maximum can play a significant time. There used to be a saying here in Texas high school football that for every sophomore you had to play, it was 1 loss. For every coach, Gordon Wood, I think there was a legendary coach here in Texas. I think was one credited with, for every sophomore you have to start on the football team. So if you start 1, you're already starting off the year at 9-1 versus 10-0. You got 2, you're 8-2, and and they're talking about sophomores. So there is a huge difference between even pitching in the Texas 6A level or out in the Trinity League in California. I think those are the 2 best leagues I know of in the country. It's tough competition, but then when you're out there facing LSU on a Friday night at Arkansas or vice versa, or you're Ole Miss facing Mississippi State, or you're at Texas facing one of their Big 12, Texas Tech, that's a great rivalry right there. It's night and day compared to high school. It just is. And if you're a coach, it's really hard to put that job on the line and trust a freshman versus these older kids that you can just grab.
Well, if you just think about it, and you bring up some really good points, Martin, but if you just think of the reality of today, what are your chances of a high school senior coming into one of these programs versus a junior that has 60 innings under his belt at the collegiate level, right? It's not even, if you put it that way, there's no question, right? It's like, are you willing to give up some of the fun? Because I think from a kid, I'm almost thinking of the kid side, as a kid that thinks Arkansas versus JUCO, there's a lot of cool things. But you have to remember, what's your purpose and what are you doing it for? If it's to have the college experience, if it's to have the great SEC or ACC or Big Ten, whatever it is, great. If you like to go to the football games, fantastic. JUCO's not the route to go, but if it's about baseball, there's some practical and ways of doing it that makes a whole hell of a lot more of sense than sitting on the bench.
Well, my son's number 1 goal is to play for the University of Arkansas. That's where he loves and that's where he wants to go.
Yep.
Now, whether that school happens or not, but that's where in his mind. So everything he works for right now is to get to Arkansas, and he understands now after we've presented him and he's seen some things that this is the way to go to Arkansas.
Absolutely.
If he'd have gone there the traditional way, less than probably 1 in 10.
No, yeah, and think about it. There's going to be freshmen that are going to be sitting the bench at Arkansas while he's getting all the playing time. He's developing. He's going to come in. The same tryouts are going to happen in the junior year, right? They're going to come in, and he's got 2 years basically on these other kids that they might have been better than him from the perspective, coming in at the game. So I think that's awesome. Great point.
Another big factor here in this too, guys, is the JUCO route. Even if you have to walk on, which fortunately in his case, he's got a full scholarship, but and there is a lot of money. Most of the JUCOs, it's like
affordable,
talking $10,000.
Right.
Exactly.
Affordable.
If you go out of state from Texas to out of state, you're looking at minimum, even with a 50% scholarship, we're probably dropping 20 grand as a parent. And so that's another huge thing, because you can take that same money, invest it back into your training, in your nutrition and things like that. So again, to me, the JUCO route is just, we're big fans. We're really big fans.
Some good schools, good schools too. Really
another
good schools.
interesting point that I'm just getting a message from Twitter from Daniel. And Daniel, I didn't see where you were from, so I apologize. The transfer portal. This is not a Division I exclusive kind of situation. And so it's very important for parents to understand, when you have the volume, the sheer volume of student athletes that are either in the portal prior to the season starting, entering at the completion of the fall season, which is a new time period, those student athletes are going to look to go to the path of least resistance, meaning I can't transfer and play from Division I to Division I. Therefore, not only am I looking at junior colleges, but you're looking at NAIA schools, NCAA Division II, and NCAA Division III. I know of a school, Washington and Lee, really, really prominent academic Division III university. They have student athletes from the University of Texas. That's a big-time Division I program. JMU, James Madison, University of Richmond. My point is that you can say, well, I'm going to fly under the radar. I'm just going to go to Division II or Division III. I don't have to deal with any of this craziness. That is simply not the case, which is why, and Eric will attest to this, Eric and I are big fans of educating and informing parents, college insights, and what's the SOS? What was the name of the app?
Athletic SOS.
Okay. And these apps are meant to educate and inform, to tell you where the student athletes are going from the portal. Where did they end up going? What's the retention rate at a lot of these schools? But let's take a case where you're a Division III student athlete, and I'm going to use the Washington Lee as an example. I don't know the specifics, but let's say you're a catcher. Your son is a catcher at Washington and Lee at the NCAA Division III level. And all of a sudden, the transfer portal hits and Division I athletes are being told there's no room at the end. Well, I transfer to Washington and Lee, and I'm a University of Texas former catcher for the University of Texas. Who do you think is going to play, or at least be given the opportunity to show that he's capable of playing? Either the freshman or the sophomore that's currently there, or the Division I guy that's coming down to Division III. So there's a lot to this that requires parents to be informed, to be up to date, and to have the access to the information that you need, because this isn't a one-time thing. I have a lot of parents that are sending me questions tonight about COVID years wrapping up in 2024. That's not accurate. It may be accurate from the perspective of the extra year of eligibility, but the junior college players that were affected, they got 2 years of extra eligibility. So they might have been a freshman or a sophomore at the JUCO level, and instead of only getting 1 year, they were given 2 extra years. So you have a lot of graduate students that have completed their undergrad studies that are finding their way to these NCAA 1, 2, and 3, NAIA 4-year schools. And so it's a college baseball topic. It's not a Division I topic.
Exactly.
The parent that just sent me a message saying you guys are consumed with Division I, that's not true. This is something that affects all of college baseball. It's going to continue to affect all of college baseball, which is why parents like Martin, this is invaluable. This is priceless information for other parents. And that's why Eric and I felt it would be great to each week have parents come on, ask their questions, share their stories. Martin, you have a question that came in, and I find this fascinating. How do your children do you tell them to lean one sport or the other, or do you just keep things, let the college coaches decide what sport your boys are going to play? There are parents that face similar decisions, albeit not at the Division I Texas A&M level, but they possibly want to play two sports in college. Do you do it as a parent, or do you let the college coaches tell your sons you're more of a football player that plays baseball or a baseball player that plays football?
Well, let me answer that this way so people understand. If you accept baseball money, this is
Right.
NCAA one level, okay? I'm not sure about the other levels, but I know for a fact that Division I level is if you accept baseball money, you cannot play football.
Right.
If you have to either be a walk-on or a football scholarship to be allowed to play both. And here's another thing: you have to be lucky enough to find a school because they're paying a full scholarship there.
Right. Football.
Full scholarship. So you're looking at, in-state here for his A&M degree, we're estimating that to be worth about $250,000. So Coach Fisher, let him go over in the spring. At least initially, he has told us this, we understand it can change. Pursue baseball. Coach Fisher was a big baseball player himself back in the day, and he had Jameis Winston. That obviously that they had a little bit of success together, but in Tyler's case for the A&M deal, he turned down some baseball. We would tell baseball. We would have schools approach us in the summertime. He pitched the Texas 6A final inning in the third and was all district as a sophomore. And 90 plus miles an hour. In his case, we kind of we just waited. And actually, that's the biggest blessing in disguise because of that we waited. Because I think that if you really are the real deal, the longer you wait, the more leverage you have.
Bingo.
Hitting early does nothing for the player other than maybe you get some 15 minutes of Twitter glory. You go around and brag, and one of the big misconceptions, and I'm going to talk back about the JUCOs. You can tell, you hear this so much at tournaments. Oh, my kid's D1. Well, that's because you hear that and you can get influenced. So unfair and so ignorant of a thing to say, because first of all, you're at a summer tournament and you're not even in college. And have you signed your national letter of intent yet?
Right.
You sign that letter of intent, and even then, nothing. It means nothing. And then really all you've got is that first semester. Because at least in football, depending on the school and the conference, it's a 4-year scholarship.
Right.
And in some of the schools, it's at least 2 to 4 years. They don't yank the football money nearly like they do baseball. It's completely different.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too about
Hey, is he cutting out? I was going to say, I didn't know if that.
He might have hit a. So Eric, one of the things that a parent is asking that Martin, hold on one second. One of the things that a parent is asking is for us to discuss what Martin was just going down as far as the scholarship, baseball scholarships. When we start talking about the portal, want to make sure I emphasize the school. If your son was a freshman and he went in as a baseball player, and let's say he got a 50% scholarship, they can't take that money away that year. The following year, they can take that money away, but you can still stay as a student. So That's the challenge. So parents have a difficult time because they want to say, okay, if I'm at Arkansas, I'm just using Martin schools, A&M. If I'm at a Texas A&M and I'm on a baseball scholarship, and they say, okay, there's no room for you, you're a freshman, we can't have you on our roster next year, and you can either elect to transfer or go find a place. You can still stay at that school, receive your 50% scholarship for the full year. It just means you will not be a baseball player in the spring, and then the following fall, your baseball scholarship money is taken away. Whereas in football, as Martin was alluding to, that's a full 4-year commitment with regard to tuition, room and books and things of that nature. Baseball is extremely unique. It's one of the, if not the only sport at college level across the board that is not a fully funded team-wide sport. Basketball, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, golf, crew, tennis, etc. All those sports are fully funded for the most part.
Yep.
Division baseball, they're trying to keep the playing field level. That's where this whole 11.7 came about. Because let's say I'm a school in Maine and I'm dealing with Florida. Well, not a lot of guys want to go to school in Orono where it's 20 below zero in February, but in Miami, Florida, it's 78, 82 degrees. Obviously, everybody's going to want to go to the schools in the warm weather climates. So we try to level the playing field. That's where 11.7 kind of came from with regard to keeping that consistent regardless of where your school is located. It's going to change. This is not something that might change. This is going to change. You are going to see at some point in the next 3 or 4 years fully funded baseball at certain Division I level schools, but it could be 2 or 3 years away. So I want to make sure parents understood that. Martin, we lost you a little bit there earlier.
I wanted to make another point about the JUCO route that a lot of people may or may not know. Depending on your age, but if you do sign with a Division I school for baseball, you're not eligible for the draft minimum 2 years, if not 3 years. So another strategic thing that we saw.
Great point.
Let's say you have a great offseason, puberty kicks in really good. I have seen some kids that really were late bloomers and didn't really kick in until they're about 20, 21 years old. Well, say you go to JUCO route, you're immediately eligible for the draft every year. And if you're young, like 18 out of high school, and you sign at a 4-year school, any 4-year school, you're not eligible for the draft for 3 more years. And that's tough. Again,
Great point.
You lose a lot of leverage at that point as well.
Yep.
There was a kid, I'm going to start saying like this at an SEC a couple of years ago. It was an NCAA pitcher of the year. It was like a 5th or 6th year guy. And I think he got $37,000 signing bonus versus these kids out of high school or JUCO that are getting anywhere from $1 to $8 million signing bonuses. And again, you're talking less than 25, 50 people maximum getting that kind of money, but still you're taking yourself almost entirely out of that if you're not careful, because then you have no leverage.
Good point.
I want to jump on that real quick to let parents know 3 things that Martin just alluded to there are pertinent to your student athlete potentially. 1, if you go to a 4-year school, you either have to turn 21, so if you were an older high school graduate and you were 19 when you graduated, you could technically become sophomore eligible because you'd be turning 21 in your sophomore year. The next thing that JUCO offers, you're immediately draft eligible, not only as a junior college student athlete, but as a high school student athlete. There's a thing that has just been re-implemented at the Major League Draft, according to the new collective bargaining agreement, which is the re-implementation of draft and follow. So Martin's son, theoretically, could be drafted out of high school. That team knows that Martin's son is going to Tyler JUCO, junior college. They have the ability to retain Martin's son's rights for 1 year within 24 hours of next year's draft. And they can see the progress and still retain his draft rights and offer him a significant higher amount of money. But it creates leverage at every year you're in junior college, you're maintaining your leverage because you're able to be drafted either your freshman year and sophomore year. And so that's leverage with regard to a 4-year commitment, et cetera. But as a parent, do some homework with regard to draft and follow rule, as well as JUCO draft rules, as opposed to a NCAA or NAIA 4-year program, because there are a lot of, it doesn't pertain to every student athlete, but if you have a high profile student athlete, it certainly pertains. Martin, that's a great point. Yep. Did you have a question, Eric?
No, I was just going to say, I've been talking about JUCO and these schools for forever. And that's, I think, one of the things. Obviously I like to talk about what we have to offer, but download the app. We've got them all. You can go in there, you can check out the schools. It's hard to find a lot, JUCOs aren't out there in the front and center, because one thing I always laugh about is most people don't even know the JUCOs that are around them. right? They've heard about the few, then maybe they've been at the showcase or they have a tournament or whatever it might be, but there's a lot of programs out there. I think it's 800. There's 800 or so JUCO schools across the country. So there's a lot to choose from.
Well, I will tell you, junior college coaches are living the high life. They are getting access to more athletes than they have ever had before. You talk about Texas. We talk Blinn, we talk San Jacinto. You talk Florida junior colleges. Junior college coaches, baseball programs in particular, are highly in demand, and they are in demand more than ever by high-level academic as well as athletic. It used to be junior colleges only came into play when a four-year school needed to get some clearinghouse issues, graduate academic uplift. Now, that is no longer the case, as is the case as we're talking with Martin. But a mother just asked, my son is a high-level academic. Is junior college the right fit? Now, we can go back and forth and postgraduate.
I've got some good answers for you here.
It's strictly a family decision.
Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Well, first of all, I know when I was in college, there'd be oftentimes I'd sit down in class and I'd be sitting next to somebody who was 60, 70 years old. And I had an investor in my private business one time that was literally 90 years old and still taking college courses. I think you only get one shot in life at your athletic career.
Yep.
And there's so many areas I could go with that, but like Blinn, for instance, Blinn is a subsidiary. It's owned by Texas A&M. So you're really taking the same classes, and first of all, it's what your degree says ultimately.
Yep.
But just because you go to JUCO for 2 years, that doesn't ruin your academic life.
Nope.
But if you go to the wrong school athletically for academic reasons, and say you were a great talent, but you didn't bloom till later, you may be ruining an athletic career.
Exactly.
I don't think I just don't believe that a good academic, I've heard that a lot, and that was the old rap on JUCO as well. It's for the kids that aren't very good and the kids that are stupid or have problems. And that's just simply not true. Because again, the major league rosters are littered with guys that play JUCO.
Yeah.
And, at
totally
the end of the day, I think academics are what you make out of them. I tell kids, those kids I coached for several years, go chase your dreams for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And if you're 24 years old and you want to go to Vanderbilt, or you want to go to Rice, you want to go to Stanford, go. There's nothing that says you do. Be a kid as long as you can.
Yeah,
I mean,
stop making your decisions on watching Last Chance U.
Well, and the fact of the matter is say you get drafted too, you can get it written in your contract that you like. Let's say you were a Stanford commit, a Rice commit, very good academic schools. You can get it written in your contract where they're going to pay for it. The big league school, Walter, you of all people with a couple of sons playing, this better than me. They can get it written in their contract where they'll have those high-end academic schools, or any school for that matter, written in their contract if they pursue that within 6 months of being released from the major league squad. I believe that's how that works.
Well, the big thing there, just the caveat that I always tell parents, because this is something I hold near and dear to my heart. The major league team may set aside money for a Rice or a Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt or Rice may not hold your acceptance longer than 6 months or a year. Each school has the ability to kind of, alter their acceptance there. So if you were to kind of bypass Vanderbilt, for instance, for a year or two, your acceptance is no longer valid. You have to reapply. And that's a story for a whole nother day. So I don't want to, but major league teams do add in the cost of what it would take for a Vanderbilt education. It's also considered earned income, but again, that's a whole different story, and it doesn't affect the masses.
I think we could probably do it. We probably could do a whole episode. Let me say one other thing about that, because I think that's a really important part. This JUCO stigma. Martin said it, and you see this, and it's across the board. A lot of these JUCOs are connected somehow or some way with one of the major universities in the area. And locally, I'm in Springfield, Missouri. We've got junior colleges, and the same professors at Missouri State are teaching at these JUCOs. So you're not getting anything different. It's a lot less expensive. A lot of schools, a lot of states, community college is free for the first, if you do what you need to do in high school. So you've got no cost. You can go and get your baseball, and then you can transfer to the schools that you want. So I think that stigma is something that is we've passed that. And I think that just focus on what is best for you.
Right.
Well, I think the one thing as we wrap up here, first of all, Martin, absolute A game here this evening, because
Thank you.
as
Yeah,
the
thank you,
litany
sir.
of parents that have sent me questions, they find it like, this is perfect. We finally have somebody that's one of us that's talking and asking and sharing. And I think that that's really important information. And I want to kind of tie this all back in. It's a really convoluted, murky, deep waters that parents enter into. And, Martin just shared some absolutely valuable insight as to what his sons went through over the last 5 years, from 8th grade through their senior year in high school. You need to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with information. And the biggest thing, you hear this word repeatedly come from my mouth, Eric's mouth, and will continue to do so: access. You need to have access to hear, not only from parents such as Martin this evening, but the college coaches offer valuable insight. Players, former coaches at the professional level offer valuable insight. In later episodes, we're going to have post-grad coaches in schools, and I'm talking really, tremendous academic athletic institutions that, it costs $80,000 to attend, and they've been around for 250 plus years. There's a lot of information that if parents have access to, they can make better, but more importantly, informed decisions. And that's everything we're going after here tonight.
Absolutely.
And so, Eric, can you just speak real quickly before we wrap up? Talk a little bit about a few of the upcoming changes for the app for parents such as Martin to be able to, sign up and be able to be prepared for what's going to be they're going to find on the app.
Well, I appreciate that, Walter. Again, the Baseball Blue Book, around since 1909. I think Walter always expands this to 130, and I think next week it'll be 150 years old.
It could be 150.
It could be 200 years, but 1909 is pretty old. But we've always been a directory. We've always been the most comprehensive coaches directory. And what we did is we took it, we turned it into an app. It's on both Android and Apple devices. It's a full-on directory, not only just coaches that we update. Again, patients with us right now, we're updating. There's about 246 changes this year in college baseball with head coaches. So we're going through it, updating that every year. But we've got players, we've got vendors, we've got training facilities. We got a lot of things. So it's all baseball all the time. It feels like LinkedIn. It's kind of a mix between Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the things that's going on. The cool things about it is, one, build a profile right now and you can access everything that you need. So all the things that we're talking about, and you want to find out what JUCO schools are in Nebraska or in Florida or whatever, it's very easy. We got a full filter and search capabilities in the directory. Find it right there. It's got coaches' contacts. It's got everything that you need. And then you can start posting stuff. The cool things that we've got coming, we're adding some academic components to this, because we understand that every kid has a little bit different level. So you might want to go, you might be good enough to go someplace, but your academics might not be there. And so all of a sudden you got to take a look at some other options. So we're going to be adding some really neat features into the app that allows you to put your student athletes' GPAs in, kind of states that they're taking a look at, and it will basically pull out the schools that have scholarship offers, roster openings. So we're partnering with some really neat software out there that provides all this data for you guys. We are kind of we're the platform. We don't do recruiting. We don't charge for it. We want to give you guys the information and the access. And I guarantee Martin and his family would have loved to have this a few years ago as we went through it. So as technology changes, that's what we are. I'm a technology guy. I've worked for IBM for many, many years. I wanted to build something, bring something to baseball that can bring a platform that baseball can live in. There's a lot of cool apps out there, but we're the only baseball only one. And we really want to focus on that, give you guys really a great insight into the world of baseball. So Walter, I appreciate that. This has always been fun. Martin, you've been awesome. I'll tell you what.
Martin, can you see all the comments on the side at all, Martin?
No, I can't. I'm actually on the phone here, and I was losing power a while ago, and I had to change rooms. So no, I'm not real good with the computer. I could probably use some tutorial from you, Eric, when it comes to that, for sure.
Well, I will tell you that you are a star. Everybody is thanking you for being a parent that had the foresight and to take a step back. And they are all saying that very thankful and grateful that you were able to join us. I'm speaking for myself. I'm sure Eric agrees. This was great, and parents thoroughly enjoyed it.
A lot of fun.
I think it was very informative, and Bill, really wants to make sure that parents understand JUCO is, in fact, a great choice. He is a former professional player, and he wanted to second everything that Martin had to say. We also have Amy Lee, who wanted to make sure, she just got to us late, loved the content, looking forward to next week. We appreciate everybody joining us. If you're a parent that wants to kind of step up, much like Martin did this evening, let us know. We want to hear from you. We want to answer your questions. It's okay to bring your student athlete along. The whole family can sit and fire away, because obviously parents are very interested. So we're going to continue this every Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. This is a full Q&A. This is for you. Nothing is scripted. So we might make mistakes. We might say some silly things that we'll apologize for, but you have access to us every Tuesday evening via Twitter stream, Instagram stream, Facebook stream, YouTube stream, and soon the Baseball Blue Book stream that'll be coming hopefully sometime in 2023. Absolutely. So thank you guys very much. It's been a great evening. It's been very informative. And Martin, again, thank you very much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it, guys. Thank you, guys.